Hi, everybody. It's meteorologist Joe Chaffee. It's a Wednesday night, the 8th of May, 2019, coming up on 8 o'clock Eastern Time on what is another night of severe weather and a busy night indeed as we look at the satellite and radar and some of the watches and warnings that are already up. So we're going to take a look at that. We're going to go through the short and long range, thinking that you're not going to be too surprised by what's on there. Remember, said that in the springtime, when blocks like to develop, models like to break them down, and they just don't want to go away. And when we get to the longer range, you'll know where I'm going with this. And let's get started. Okay, so we do have quite a bit of weather going on this evening. 2 working tornado watches, a number of warnings have already gone up, and we've got a couple of them working at the moment. So remember, folks, if you're watching this on a replay, it's 8 o'clock Eastern Time on the 8th of May, so make sure you check your local National Weather Service office by going to weather.gov. I just wanted to pull up some of the local offices down in the south where we've got some working tornado watches, warnings, flash flood warnings. There appears to be, counting them, looks like 3 tornado warnings up at this point north of Monroe. That's Bastrop, Louisiana, which I never heard of. Or is that Mississippi? I'm in the Mississippi side. I'm having a tough time seeing the borders here. That is on the Louisiana side, so somewhere between Monroe and and Bastrop. And we've got a lot of flash flood warnings that are up when we go further north from there on the Mississippi side, and also west of Alexandria. And I'll just punch up the zone to the north. Looks like a tornado warning near Pine Bluff, Arkansas. I'll go to the west, and there we go. So we've got a ton of, a lot of counties in Arkansas under flash flood warnings, and you can see the Pine Bluff tornado warning that's on there. And now I'll just jump off to the latest radar, because it is pretty impressive. You've got a bowing line of severe thunderstorms crossing the state of Louisiana, running north-south and then turning west-southwestward toward the Texas border and moving east. You've got a lot of heavy rain moving across Arkansas and now reaching into parts of southern Missouri, and you got some lead downpours that have run up to the north in northern Mississippi. So very much living up to the risk area that the SPC had predicted today. Here's the on the mesoscale. That's the real, pretty much real-time radar as of 8:02. The 2 working tornado watches that cover much of the northern half of Louisiana. They move into west central Mississippi and also into the eastern part of Texas. Solid here with the dynamics, low pressure back in West Texas. I always like to take a look at the surface obs, and you see the temp dew points, a lot of areas with dew points up there in the low and middle 70s. We've been talking about the fact that we've had this good solid gradient from off the Gulf of Mexico, this south-southeast flow just pouring that tropical moisture, and that's going all the way up into Arkansas and points northward. So the result is that heavy rain. The low is to the west. You've got a warm front here somewhere. Probably just follow the bulge of the isobars. We're just doing some quick analysis. We probably can find a warm front here that is pushing northward. You've got and then there's a trailing cold front that comes down from a low up now up into the Great Lakes. So very, very busy pattern indeed. Here's the surface map tonight, and there's your low. Actually, they don't have it. Well, they do. They don't really have a warm front analyzed here, but they do have the low up in through central Iowa that runs down through Kansas and into western Oklahoma. But you can definitely see that flow, the isobars coming in from the south-southeast from off the Gulf of Mexico and pushing all the way up into Missouri and into Illinois. You've got temperatures here in the upper 70s to low 80s and dew points up into the 60s, so that's all ripe for activity. So let's look at WPC. We'll come back to this in a minute. So let me square this away. By the way, this is probably a good time to mention, I have not had my regular Facebook show with my colleague Joe Rayo. We've not been able to do that because there's some kind of issue with Facebook on my Facebook page where I can't access the live stuff for some reason. It keeps coming up as an error, and it's not on my end, and it's nothing I did wrong. I just can't set the live shot up. So until they fix it, and since I'm going to be gone for the next week, not from here, but from doing these live streams, but I won't see Joe for a week. So we'll be maybe late next week when I come back. Hopefully everything is squared away. Looks like a new tornado watch, by the way, has just been added right at this moment, because this map updates, by the way, all the time while we're on. And a new tornado watch has been put up on the eastern flank of this. And we had also SPC, which kind of backed off a little bit on the extent of the severe weather with just a slight risk this morning. And then they had to go ahead and add an enhanced risk for severe weather, and the marginal risk going all the way up to Chicago and almost to, well, not quite to Milwaukee, but up through northern Illinois into southern Wisconsin. So it's going to be a busy night ahead with respect to severe weather. And, of course, with rain being front and center, here's WPC's 7-day rainfall forecast. So that just takes us into next week of that big splotch. And this doesn't count the rain that's already fallen. So they got many inches to go. And some of these areas, you see those few specks of yellow there, that's 10 inches. So you're looking at 5 inches plus over a really large area in southeast Texas, East Texas, Louisiana, except for the southeast, western Mississippi, and southeastern Arkansas. A ton of rain being forecast here, and some of that rain in excess of several inches even pushes up into the lower Ohio Valley. Meanwhile, just a quick note with respect to the weather here in the Northeast, of course, because we have a system coming through Friday, and then one for later Sunday night, Monday. Not a whole lot of rains being generated when you think about it. Yeah, there are some 2 and 3 inch amounts in Pennsylvania. I think a lot of that's going to come from tomorrow and tomorrow night and into Friday. Not so much the daytime tomorrow, but certainly tomorrow night into Friday. And then you'll have whatever you get out of the system for Sunday night into Monday, and that might be more of a low that goes by to the south, off the Delaware coast perhaps, or the Jersey coast. So the rainfall amounts in the Northeast are really on the order of about an inch to an inch and a half, inch and 3/4, which is nothing really to write home about. A little bit of heavier rains down in South Florida. The Southeast doesn't look all that bad. The rains extend over through New Mexico and into parts of Arizona and Southern California over the next 7 days. But you head up into the west, the northern plains, particularly as you head west and toward the west coast. A little bit of precip, but not a whole lot spread out over the next 7. All the warnings tonight are pretty much concentrated on the idea of the severe weather that's going on. And you've got those tornado watches, the dark red, those are flash flood warnings that are up. Various flood watches for much of Arkansas and also up through parts of Missouri and Kansas. And the light blue, I believe, that is for frost advisories. With the growing season now well underway and the way the pattern has been, it's cold. We've got winter storm warnings up for parts of the Colorado Rockies. We also have winter storm warnings up for a small area in northeastern Minnesota around Duluth and surrounding that the western shores of Lake Superior. So pretty interesting there. And in the northwest, near the coast, you don't see this often because that is a pretty wet place. You've got red flag warnings. So the dryness in the northwest perhaps beginning to take its toll on some areas with regards to getting too dry and creating fire risk. Now let's jump, I'm going to move the map to the east now, and you can see yesterday's cold front which came through, produced some actually some pretty strong thunderstorms for a short time in parts of New Jersey, in central New Jersey. Saw a lot of lightning strikes there for a while last night, but it was a kind of a narrow area that fractured from the main line, and the rest of it just fell apart. But that front's already stalled out across the Delmarva Peninsula and through Virginia, and then you can see it snakes as a large warm front through southern Ohio and through Indiana and Illinois into that low in Iowa. So now we're going to see this front attempt to back up northward, but it's got to fight this big high, that big cool high east of James Bay. And one of the things that I was looking for yesterday, and it did happen today, was that the dry air from this high that settled in New England and in upstate New York pushed pretty far to the south. And we actually experienced, for a large part of the area that I forecast for, experienced their third consecutive day of sunshine, which is something that hasn't happened in quite a while. I'm thinking this might have been the first time all spring that we've strung 3 days in a row of dry weather, although I will allow for the fact that it rained at night, both Sunday night into early Monday morning, and again back to last night. So just jump back on the severe weather. I know I'm kind of hopping back and forth here. So here is the outlook for tomorrow, where the slight risk is pushed a little bit further to the east. Note, everything is at a snail's pace, just literally crawling along. Finally, you're getting most of the severe weather out of Texas, but not all of it. We still have a remaining slight risk in East Texas, and the marginal risk goes back a bit further west from there. And then you've got the slight risk from Louisiana, East Texas, and almost just virtually all of Mississippi, almost all of Arkansas, western Tennessee into Kentucky, southernmost Indiana, and southern Illinois. But when we get to Friday, things relax a bit. We've got a small area of marginal risk being indicated for the central Appalachians there, Johnny Questland, western North Carolina, northeastern Tennessee, on up northward into western Virginia and West Virginia, and a small portion of southwest PA, and then just sort of have this general line area of thunderstorms being indicated all the way up into central New England. Now, think back to any time in the last week to 10 days, particularly if we go back toward the maybe 6, 7, 8 days ago, when we were talking about this blocking pattern and the fact that in the spring, when blocks form, they hold on, and models keep trying to break them down, and in reality, they wind up holding on. And I've been watching the teleconnections, not every day, but maybe every other day, just kind of giving them a look. And when I pulled them up today, after I looked at the GFS, I said, I bet you that NAO is negative pretty much all the way through, after being, after seeing it try to bring it back positive for a little while. And except for that little blip around mid-month where it goes to neutral, that NAO, that North Atlantic oscillation, measuring higher than normal pressures up in the Arctic regions, the northernmost part of the Atlantic over by Greenland. It extends from Scandinavia all the way to Labrador. And by the way, part of that calculation too is lower pressures south of 50 degrees north. So if you've got, 55 degrees north. So if you've got lower pressures from, say, 55 degrees north down to about 40 north, and higher pressures from 55 north and northward, that is going to make your NAO index negative, and that's what's happening. And that is the signature of sun blocking, and it also is telling you that the jet in some places in the United States, in the east in particular, is probably displaced far to the south of normal. One big important change too, because now this part of it's different, is the fact that the Pacific North America index, ridge in the west, trough in the east, when it's positive, we just came out of a stretch where that PNA was deeply negative. Now it is going to be, it is positive now, and it's going to actually get strongly positive around mid-month. So there's going to be a tendency for troughing in the east, even if the NAO goes to neutral, and the EPO, which is still kind of negative, goes neutral, goes a little bit positive, but I don't think it's exerting a huge influence on the overall pattern in this particular state that is being forecasted. And this was, by the way, from the GFS. The snapshot is taken once a day, so this is off the GFS ensemble model runs from last night. Now, take a look at the area up in the center of the map, and look up near Greenland and that whole area across the Arctic region. Now, you have that yellow and brown. It's telling you that your heights, or in other words, pressures, they are going to be above normal throughout Greenland and the polar region. And watch what happens here as we go forward. Now, there's a high, there's a strong upper high over Greenland here by Monday, which is your block. You see the lower pressures just north of 50 northeast of Newfoundland, what we would often call the 50-50 low, is sitting out there. And you've got lower pressures across central and northern Canada, a ridge that's trying to flare up there along the west coast. And that blocking high, as we go through the next 16 days, it moves toward Labrador, kind of weakens a bit, quite a bit, but you'll notice that there's still this ridge that's up there with above normal heights and pressures going into next week. And then gradually, as we go through time, you start to see the high coming back to a large extent across Greenland into northeast Canada, and then kind of sets itself just west of northern Hudson's Bay, sitting there. And look at how far south the jet is suppressed into the U.S. You've got upper lows sitting in California, another one in Iowa. You've got this long jet across the Atlantic with upper lows right along 50 degrees north. Where they are specifically isn't important. What is important is the fact that the tendency for blocking and the tendency for the jet stream to be south of normal continues. And this is going to take us now into the last 10 days of May, if you want to believe it. So the resulting weather is probably going to be, it's probably going to evolve a bit differently, but it's still going to be fairly active because the jet is going to be sending systems coming down into the Great Lakes and swinging them around through the Northeast. And by the way, if you look at this upper air, here, this is our system for Monday into Tuesday. But later next week, there's actually a fairly wrapped up upper low that parks itself in northern New York. And this is cold. For this time of year, this is pretty chilly air that's coming down. This is for May 18th, May 19th, that whole weekend. This is a pretty chilly looking pattern here that we're seeing out in the longer term. Very interesting. I know every snow lover out there is looking at this furious because they're thinking, where was this back in the winter time? I know. And, blocks in the winter time, while they happen, are they're more difficult to maintain because of the state of the atmosphere in the wintertime. Fast-moving jets, stronger systems moving along. It's kind of hard to establish a block for a long stretch of time. It can happen, but if you think about it, there hasn't been any exceptional wintertime blocking during the winter months. I'm not talking about, aside from March from last year with the 4 nor'easters, but if we lay that aside, the NAO, the North Atlantic Oscillation, and the signature blocking has been pretty much absent since the winter of 2010-2011. It made sporadic appearances in 12-13. It was, but for the most part, you had very little blocking since that winter. 09 and 10 and 10 and 11 featured a lot of blocking through the winter months, and we really haven't seen that that would be the last 7+ winters when you think about it. Maybe one of these years it will come back, and it will. I just couldn't tell you when. So let's look at what the surface is going to be doing here. And of course, we've got this flare-up of severe weather tonight and tomorrow across Arkansas and Louisiana. Looks like a lot of these thunderstorms are going to be firing up overnight into tomorrow morning. Meanwhile, we've got the old cold front now, new warm front that's going to try and move up. Onshore flow tomorrow for me. A lot of clouds. Temperatures having a tough time getting out of the 50s. There's your low going up into Wisconsin near Milwaukee. And if you'll notice, there's a little light shading of blue up there in that small area where they've got that winter storm warning up in parts of northeastern Minnesota. And some snows here being indicated on the GFS for late tonight, tomorrow morning in the winter storm warnings that are up for the Colorado Rockies. So this cold front is going to come through, and of course, the southern part of that front's going to stall out. We've got energy coming out from the south. We've got an upper air shortwave that's moving into the Great Lakes. Now, the GFS seems to treat these systems separately. It's got a southern stream shortwave that it brings up and ejects out on Sunday. It actually brings rain up to about central New Jersey Sunday afternoon, and then it kicks it out to the east, and it waits for that the energy from the northern stream to dive in and create another wave for Monday, and that moves out, and it has yet another wave, and this is now finally with the short wave itself. Another low forms here on Tuesday, prolonging the rain. I don't know if I go along with this. It's unusual to see something like this happen, whereas the European model is, and this makes maybe a bit more sense in that in the European model has really just one low that comes out. Here it is on Saturday, right in the Gulf of Mexico near south of Houston, and then it runs it up into West Virginia. The isobars are all pinched down into off the Virginia coast. You see how they're pointing. You've got, this is Sunday morning, you have a high in eastern Canada, onshore flow, and this would probably suggest that rain might be on this doorstep of New York City by Sunday morning. By Monday morning, that takes almost 24 hours for the low to redevelop, and it's sitting right off Cape May, one low, and then it's gone by Tuesday, and weather conditions at that point would be improving. To me, this kind of makes more sense than seeing the fractured look of the GFS, bringing this out in pieces. The European upper air, there's a southern shortwave there, but you can't really find it. It gets lost. That northern stream energy just comes around and amplifies as it swings across the Great Lakes and moves into New England by Tuesday. Whereas the GFS is much slower on the uptake here, so it kind of ejects this weak southern shortwave, which even here you can't really find very well. And then that upper low just kind of dives down. It dives it further south, taking it off the New Jersey coast, and then wraps it up here. So it has a much longer duration event, and would argue that you would probably have a last wave intensifying here come Monday night into Tuesday afternoon, lingering all of this into the first 2 days of next week before weather conditions improve. And here comes that upper low on the GFS that I told you about for next weekend, which gets really wrapped up. That is a very, very chilly push. If you look at the surface low that it brings up, there's your cold front. Just follow that precip down from the Great Lakes, and it brings it through here on Thursday, and that's chilly air. That's a that 540 thickness is in the wintertime is the thickness that we use for rain and snow, and look where it is. That is down almost to about New York City. That is chilly air for this time of year. Probably would mean for a lot of instability if it verifies. The Europeans' upper air for late next week, just as a comparison, is a bit different. It does bring down this next shortwave, much like the GFS, into upstate New York, and then takes it over to Nova Scotia, and then just rotates it up into southeastern Canada. This is next Saturday. Chilly, dry. There's actually another upper trough that's swinging down and around from the Great Lakes. Amazing, because this is a very chilly looking upper air for the long haul. Unbelievable but true. This is the world we live in right now. Things are running a bit reverse. Everybody would like to see the springtime warmth get underway, and it's not happening. So I guess in summary, with respect to what we're going to be looking at here, everything seems to be still on course with regards to the next few days of going into the weekend. The questions for Mother's Day, of course, does the rain get into my area Sunday morning? Does it hold off to later Sunday afternoon and night? Does it come in about halfway? I think that's something we'll probably be able to resolve tomorrow or Friday for sure. And then it'll be very, very interesting to see if that cool look that the models are giving shows up for the end of the week. It is the Bermuda high that is over the southeast, which is keeping the rain in the Midwest. There is an upper ridge. There is a ridge right now in the east, in the upper atmosphere, but you're getting the impact of that lower pressures across Canada in the upper atmosphere. The stronger flow and colder air aloft in Canada. You've got that cold high up in eastern Canada that at the low levels of the atmosphere has pushed its way down into the northern parts of Virginia and the Delmarva Peninsula. Even though aloft you're seeing this, warming going on, and yes, the strength of that ridge goes with the deeper trough that is out to the west, and the surface low with that is going almost straight north toward up the Mississippi River and toward Wisconsin. So we're just going to have to wait for that to break down, which it does do as we go into the weekend. It is. I'm just kind of glad I got a long drive ahead of me, so I'm actually kind of glad that we're in a bit of a ridge position here in the east, because it looks like I won't have any rain issues driving down overnight and on Thursday. I would have hated to have to drive down. Yes, the NAO, Jason Barry, this time of year is not fun. There will come a point, by the way, that the NAO being negative, if when we get into the summer months, if you get the NAO negative, you get ridging in the east to some degree, like you have now. You can wind up, if that ridge in the east is pushed up far enough north, somebody's going to get hot for a stretch. So the NAO being negative, when you get into the summer months, it kind of has a bit of a different impact on the weather here. And of course, all other things being equal, which is what we don't know, what's the PNA going to be, what's the EPO going to be, those are things that I couldn't answer right now. Dio Nankumar, I don't know if you missed it from the beginning, but I'm having technical difficulties on Facebook right now, trying to go live from my Facebook page. I don't know what the problem is. There's an error message that comes up when I try to set up the live stream, and it's been like this all week. It started on Monday, and I've tried different browsers. I've tried everything, so the error is not on my end. And I actually can get on Facebook and do lives from my phone, and I can do lives for other pages that I'm an admin on. But for some reason, there's some technical issue with mine. So I've messaged them and told them what was going on, and I also made it a point to say, please get back to me in 2 or 3 months with the solution, because they are notoriously slow to respond, if they even respond at all. So I'm not holding my breath, but I'm hoping that maybe by the time I get back late next week, my Facebook will be working. Otherwise, I'm going to have to figure out some sort of end around. Either that, or I'm going to bring the Joe and Joe show here onto YouTube, which is, I'm sure Joe would have no problem with that, and I certainly don't have any problem with that, and I'm thinking you folks won't have any problem with that. So we'll leave it at this point. So I got my cigars, I got my fishing poles, I'm headed south for a while, but you will hear from me. Now here's the deal. I had a long drive, so tomorrow night, if I'm not absolutely physically dead, okay, tired, and if I'm not physically dead tired, I will do a live stream tomorrow night, but I'm not sure what time, but I will try. Otherwise, if I don't do a live stream, just know that I'm probably fast asleep somewhere in my hotel room, trying to make up for all the sleep that I'm not getting. I'm not going to get tonight. I'm going to try and do some fishing, Bill. I don't know if I'm going to have an opportunity to. There's family stuff going on, but if I am going to try to make an opportunity to go fishing, maybe with my son-in-law and my grandson. We'll see if he's up to it. But if not, I'll save it for when I get back home. All right, folks, have a great evening. Enjoy yourselves. Be safe. Again, maybe tomorrow, maybe not. But if I'm not on tomorrow, I definitely will be on at some point on Friday. Good night, everybody.